WADR, promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar. Good afternoon and many thanks for tuning in to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and all around the world on WADR.org. This is Newslink and here are the top stories. Mali's draft constitution on the edge of adoption after Sunday's referendum. Sierra Leone security sector deploys agents and other personnel ahead of Saturday's general elections.
The public should be rest assured that the security sector will remain professional and impartial in the execution of its duties, and every political party will be treated fairly in line with our respective mandates and codes of conduct.
5 West African countries signed Nigeria-Morocco pipeline MOU for regional energy sufficiency. And Ghana's Apex Bank reveals a loss of $5.5 million by financial institutions due to fraudulent activities. Please stay with us for details of these stories and more.
Here is James Adjapong with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining us. Now to our very first story. Malians on Sunday participated in the disputed referendum steered by the transitional government. Across the country, polls opened by 8 a.m. for some 8.4 million registered voters to enjoy their civic right under adequate security. Oge Obiarika reports.
This is a historic vote in which every Malian of voting age must feel proud to take part so that tomorrow they can be seen by themselves, by their family, and by their children as a major player in the process of change. This is a first in the history of Mali, and we should be proud of it.
The Malian Prime Minister Shogelko Kalamega speaking after casting his vote. On Sunday, the long-disputed referendum was held in Mali, an exercise that could be a game-changer in deciding the country's future as it seeks to restore constitutional order. With more than 24,400 polling stations spread across 13,240 centers, Malians were given the right to vote a yes or no for the adoption of the draft document. The transition president, Colonel Assimi Goïta, voted at the Kati military camp in Bamako, the capital city that has more than 558,000 voters across 1,406 polling stations, making it the largest electoral district, according to Haruna Jiara, prefect of Kati. In other centers, as reported by local media, no major incidents were noted as tight security was deployed in all voting locations. While the League of Imams and Scholars in Mali remain opposed to the draft text because of the inclusion of the word secular, more than 100 political groups and CSOs last week formed a coalition to call for the postponement of the June 18 exercise after they described it as illegitimate state action. The regional bloc ECOWAS, the international community and partners all await the outcome of the vote, the results of which will be made public in the coming days.
Oge Obiarika filed that report. Meanwhile, Germany said a request by the Malian government for the United Nations peacekeeping force to leave the country without delay is politically motivated. In a statement on Sunday, Berlin informed that it still aims for an orderly withdrawal of its troops by May 2024. recalled Bamako at the UN Security Council last Friday, citing a crisis of confidence with the decade-long UN mission MINUSMA, requested that the latter immediately withdraw its troops. A spokeswoman for the German Defense Ministry reiterated that her government's interest remains a structured asset and continues to support the UN negotiations. Germany has deployed some 1,000 troops to Mali, most near the northern town of Gao, where their main task is to gather reconnaissance for the 13,000 UN peacekeeping operation. Elsewhere, Nigerians in the diaspora on Sunday voted late for the 2020 legislative elections to elect their deputies. Just over 200,000 Nigerians in the diaspora were called to the polls to choose the 5 MPs who will represent them in the National Assembly. The legislative election for citizens abroad was delayed for more than 2 years because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Abdullahi Hassan completes the story.
Nigerians abroad elected their 5 deputies to the National Assembly in over 500 polling stations spread across the West African sub-region, North Africa, Europe, and United States. They were unable to do so in 2021 when the assembly was renewed because of the COVID-19 pandemic. With the closure of borders, it has been impossible to carry out voter registration operations abroad and establish a biometric register, according to the Independent Electoral Commission, (SENI). Since the National Assembly inauguration in 2021, following the election of President Mohamed Bazoum, the 5 seats allocated to MPs from the diaspora had remained vacant. On the whole, the ballot went well, confirming both the majority and the opposition parties involved in the electoral race. Of the 10 political parties in the running, the ruling PNDS party has 79 seats and the opposition Modem Foualumana has 19 seats in parliament. The provisional results of these diaspora legislative elections are expected in 5 days' time. The Constitutional Court will, however, decide when the 5 new MPs will take office and for how long.
Abdullahi Hassan with that report.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
If you are just joining us, this is Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM. With barely 5 days to go, Sierra Leone security sector is stepping up plans to ensure that the June 24th general elections pass peacefully. At a joint press conference, the security chiefs told journalists about their preparedness level in addressing potential acts of violence before, during, and after elections. From Freetown, Patrick Salia reports.
The National Security Coordinator at the Office of National Security, Abdullahi Koka, said that the state apparatus are set to provide a safe and secured environment for the conduct of the general elections. Their role as a security sector is said is crucial in making sure that elections are a success and voters as well as the contestants feel safe to exercise their constitutional rights.
The public should be rest assured that the security sector will remain professional and impartial in the execution of its duties, and every political party will be treated fairly in line with our respective mandates and codes of conduct.
Contrary to social commentaries of a panicky situation with the presence of security personnel at polling centers, the Army Joint Force Commander, Major General Dauda Alpha, said their existence would rather deter any potential disruptions, maintain orders, and provide assistance where needed. He added they are providing security to also help instill confidence in voters, ensuring that they can exercise their democratic rights without fear or intimidation.
Our assets, their respective locations, so that they can adequately host the elections with the support of multiplier forces. Then, of course, we've established rapid reaction teams across the country because normally elections have the tendency for spontaneous outbursts of violence.
The Inspector General of Police, William Fayaselu, re-echoed the point that such deployment of especially police personnel are to help handle unforeseen circumstances that might arise, particularly on polling day.
We have done a comprehensive threat assessment countrywide, and we've identified a series of flashpoints, and we have done enormous deployment in those areas because our overarching aim at the end of the day is to ensure that we provide safety and security for our own people.
It is hoped that the personnel would address any security concerns, handle crowd controls, and respond swiftly to any incidents that might occur, thus safeguarding the integrity of the elections. Patrick Salia, WADR News, Freetown.
In other news, the Conference of Bishops of Togo, CET, has raised concerns about the need for peaceful elections across the national territory. The abbot also called on political actors to create a good climate ahead of the regional and legislative elections, while urging the government to release all political prisoners. More details with Marty C.
The call by the bishops was made at the 133rd ordinary session of the conference when they dismissed the electoral census for the general and legislative elections. As a reminder, Togo is organizing twin elections this year. For the bishops, the census, which has been carried out, launches Togo towards the next electoral deadlines, therefore setting the demand for free and transparent elections. In a statement, the clerics asked politicians in Togo to take the necessary measures to guarantee a peaceful climate. It additionally appealed to the authorities to ensure the respect of fundamental human rights and freedoms. No doubt, Togo had said it is holding the legislative and regional elections this year, but no official date has been announced. Experts in the country, however, suggest November, which corresponds to the end of the current legislature. The nation on the Gulf of Guinea is also preparing to organize the first regional elections in its history in accordance with the 1992 constitution, which was later revised in 2019. During the vote, regional councillors will be elected for 6 years, renewable twice for administering the region. As for the legislative elections, the process will make it possible to renew the 6th legislature, whose mandate expires this year.
Marty C. filed that report. You are listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM, Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Mali's draft constitution on the edge of adoption after Sunday's referendum. Sierra Leone's security sector deploys agents and other personnel ahead of Saturday's general elections. 5 West African countries sign Nigeria-Morocco pipeline MOU for regional energy sufficiency. And Ghana's First Bank reveals a loss of $5.5 million by financial institutions due to fraudulent activities. Still ahead, we have our newspaper review, guest interview, and some sports updates. Kindly stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
This is West Africa Democracy Radio, and we are broadcasting on 94.9 FM, Dakar, Senegal. Don't forget you can follow our discussions on Twitter and Instagram at the WADR News. And on Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. On YouTube, find us at WADR News. In Ghana, findings from the central bank revealed that banks and other financial institutions recorded a total loss value of $5 million attributable to fraud for the year ending 2022. The report by the Financial Stability Department of the Bank of Ghana highlighted forgery and manipulation of documents, fraudulent withdrawals, check fraud, email and cash theft, also known as cash suppression, as the top 5 fraud activities. Our Accra correspondent Tatiana Bella Lawson reports that the loss for 2022 ending is a 7.8% drop compared to 2021.
According to the report, other fraud activities include e-money fraud, ATM fraud, burglary, lending and credit fraud, and impersonation, amongst others. The year 2022 recorded significant attempted fraud with a loss value of $15 million, of which $5 million was successful. Over this period, the total number of fraud incidents recorded was 15,164. Speaking after the public outdoor of its report, Dr. Joseph France, head of financial stability, says the central banks are implementing structures and policies to reduce the incidents.
Before we get to publishing our report, ongoing basis, there are structures that we have put in place to handle these things. I always say that it's better you educate the public to do the right thing than to leave them, for them to grope in the dark and invent themselves.
A repented mobile money fraudster revealed the modus operandi for duping unsuspecting customers.
Yeah, gang, yeah, Dawson. Inti yo microphone bi wo ha. Ya mo musika so mo nkoye merchant e wo kwan ho.
We are a gang. We have planted people as mobile money agents or merchants, so we are able to capture your contact details when you transact.
Wo number one ho, no dey send here.
We have a code that can review all your registration information, including your ID number. So after the day's work, we access the log and start calling the numbers, having in mind the amount in your account with the aim to get your code. Another way is to capture your code with a CCTV camera in our office or get someone to overlook your shoulders.
The Bank of Ghana, through the Committee for Cooperation between Law Enforcement Agencies and Banking Committee, COCLAB, is collaborating to engage with security agencies to deal with the prosecution of persons involved. Reporting for Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Atiewin Imbila Lawson in Accra.
This is the newspaper review. Stay on top of the news. Get the most important stories with added insight and concise review.
This is the newspaper review.
Up next, we have our press stories from Abuja with WADR's Usman Umar.
Hello and welcome to the press review segment. Today we shall be looking at the Daily Champion and Nigerian Pilot. The Daily Champion has at its screaming headline, "Police oddly killed as former Imo Governor Rochas Okorocha escapes death." With the rider, "What's happening in my state makes me angry." Who is saying this? Of course, Rochas Okorocha. Details of this reports that the police oddly was killed in an attack on the convoy of the former governor of the state. There are other very interesting stories on the front page of the Daily Champion. You have drug war. Nigeria Drug Law Enforcement Agency arrests 2 Qatar-based drug lords in Lagos, impounds meth consignment. On the top right corner of the front page of the Daily Champion, you have disclose pensions paid to you as ex-governors. Serap tells Akpabio, others in the 10th Assembly. Other stories of interest on the front page of the Daily Champion says Nigeria, Morocco, Cote d'Ivoire, Liberia, Benin, Guinea sign Memorandum of Understandings on Nigeria-Morocco gas pipeline. This is an ongoing project that is aimed at opening the oil and gas sector to connect all of these countries, and ECOWAS, understandably, has been at the center of all of this. The Federal Capital Territory Inland Revenue Service is advising ministries, departments and agencies and contractors to remit their withholding tax to the agency. Now, let's quickly move over to the next paper for consideration today, Nigerian Pilot, with a screaming headline, "Wike, I was poisoned." Remember, Governor Nyesom Wike is the immediate past governor of the oil-rich Rivers State. Now, that's a story that actually has been on the front page of many of the newspapers today. Governor Nyesom Wike, as you remember, played a very critical role, even as a PDP politician, in bringing on board the government of the APC, especially at the center. Talking about the government of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Another interesting story to also consider is Nigeria Judiciary Council launches fresh probe on 7 judges. This followed allegations against these judges of judicial misconduct, and the NJC, that is the organ responsible for carrying out disciplinary actions on judges and other judicial officers, is opening a probe on these judges. And lastly, we also look at the story, Customs says smuggling of fuel drops drastically after subsidy removal. Nigeria Customs is reporting that there has been a drastic reduction in the amount of fuel smuggled out of Nigeria since after announcement of fuel subsidy removal. And on that note, we've come to the end of press review for today. With me, Usman Umar. It's back to you in the studios.
Thank you, Usman, for that press review.
Politics,
analysis on major news,
social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Following a vote of no confidence and the immediate evacuation of the decade-long UN mission in Mali by the Transitional Authority, Berlin has asked to remain in the country for a more structural exit by 2024. Germany, in a statement, described Bamako's request as politically motivated. For regional experts, however, a lot is in doubt concerning Mali's military prowess, security arrangements, civil engagement, as well as human rights issues in the face of a deteriorating situation. Frank Hayford is a security analyst and he is our guest.
Yes, from their demeanor within the past 8 months, it is very, very clear that Berlin is not really happy about this arrangement or this policy by the Malian regime to let their troops leave their territory. If you check, the donation and all the stuff that they've written to the Malian regime, you can see that they have strong interest within the Sub-Saharan region, and that this development is not something that they are happy about. You see, unlike France, who willingly decided to leave as soon as they realized that the Wagner group from Russia was landing in Mali, they decided to just leave. But with the issue of Germany, they have been dragging their feet, which shows that they have interest, and the interest, in fact, goes beyond security in Sub-Saharan Africa, but they also have economic interest. And this can clearly be seen when the Speaker of Parliament came to Africa and met some African leaders and was even speaking against Chinese and others here. So they are not really happy about it. They have a strategic plan in Africa, and this is a very big blow to them.
So at this stage, what military prowess do you project the Malian government has that is making them refuse negotiations with the UN mission in the fight against terrorism?
All right. Now, to answer this question, one must first understand the psychological warfare behind what is happening with the military regime in Mali. First of all, you know that these Western countries who have joined the 12,000 troops UN mission in Mali have their own democratic interests. And we've seen it over the years, how they've been using informal and covert means to push democracy in Africa and other Southern American countries. So the Malian government sees them as a threat, and that is why they want to push them out. In addition to that, they have a very good friend now, that is Russia. And if we are to use the Ukraine war as a case study, it is inevitable that the Wagner group is very powerful. They have a very strong military might. We also saw what they did in Bakhmut by sacking and in fact conquering the whole of Bakhmut. So if they have the Wagner group supporting them and we have thousands of troops behind them, they are very powerful, and that's why they feel empowered. Aside that, we can also look at the impact of the mission so far in Africa. France, for instance, has been here for about 13 years. The German troops have also been there for about 10 years. What has been the impact? Has terrorism decreased over the years? No, it still increases at a marginal rate. And if you analyze all of this, you can understand what the military regime in Mali is doing, and they have a very strong partner, Wagner.
Okay, so finally, what security intelligence arrangement should MINUSMA employ going forward?
All right. Now, looking at all these things happening, the major arrangements should be intelligence. They should have a very strong intelligence collection infrastructure. And with this, there should be a little bit of local content. You realize that most of the troops are foreigners, although we have Chadian troops who have significant number of soldiers in there, but language becomes in one way or the other a barrier. So if you are to take key intelligence on the grounds in Mali, you need a strong infrastructure, and there should be a local content by getting people who are against them. In fact, practically it is now a war not just against terrorism, but the military junta as well. So you need to get those local people to be part. And a very strong threat assessment need to also be conducted. You see, one thing about these kind of things is if it is happening in Mali, it can happen in another country. So we need to ensure this does not have any spillover effect. There need not to be a domino effect. So a serious immediate threat assessment need to be done. In addition, there should be a strong collaborative intelligence. Over the years, what happens is these Western troops, when they get their intelligence, they share it among themselves and they give the least part to their African counterparts.
Frank Hayford is a security analyst from the Africa International Relations Forum. And here's Sankole Janko with some sports updates.
Hello, very warm welcome and thank you for joining us. Nigeria have secured a place in the CAF African Cup of Nations Côte d'Ivoire 2023 after a dramatic 3-2 win against Sierra Leone on Sunday at the Samuel Doe Stadium in Monrovia. It looked as if it was going to be a ride in the park for the Super Eagles when star striker Victor Osimhen scored 2 goals in quick succession to give his side a healthy lead. But the Leon Stars rallied back to equalize thanks to goals from Mustafa Bandu and Augustus Kagbo. The victory on Nigeria and Guinea-Bissau qualification to AFCON in January 2024. Cape Verde also secured AFCON qualification after a 3-1 win against Burkina Faso on Sunday at the Estadio Nacional de Cabo Verde. Goals from Bebe, João Paulino and Clay helped Cape Verde to secure their place in the upcoming Côte d'Ivoire tournament. Meanwhile, Mali also booked a place in the upcoming AFCON tournament following a 2-0 win against Congo on Sunday. Brahim Kone put Mali ahead before Nene Drogeles sealed the victory. This victory secured Mali's qualification for CAF Côte d'Ivoire 2023 Africa Cup of Nations, while Gambia in second place will need only a draw against Congo in third to secure a qualification. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
Thank you, Sankule, for that sports update. We have come to the end of this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to our listeners in the Gambia via Hot 104.3 FM, and in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM Lofa County, and in Ghana on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi. Nyas Bilimu has been on the console. Many thanks to Mustafa Sek for our Facebook Live coverage. Do interact with us via social media platforms on Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, it's a rebroadcast of our health program, Well Body with Imo Edit. I am James Adjapong. Good afternoon.
News, talk, music. Get it all 24 hours on West Africa Democracy Radio
94.9 FM Dakar.